Dobra pozorować Build Weekend Watch. Shoshu kotere recommende televidne I filmy newykochende. Mnie zuvet Ricky Camilleri. And K-nam Prisnietz HuffPost starszy reporter Leigh Blickley. And culture I critic at BuzzFeed News, Alison Willmore. Thanks, everybody. I'm practicing my Russian for when the handover is complete. We should be all really scared right now. Maybe not talking about TV shows and movies this week. But we have jobs to do. Before we start talking about everything released this weekend, let's take a minute to gripe or grasp at the Cats news that we got this morning, guys, right? Apparently Tom Hooper of The King's Speech is directing a feature film of Cats starring Ian McKellen, Jennifer Hudson, James Corden, and...
Taylor Swift.
Hey, Swift! Are we happy about this? Sad about this? Is it just not for us?
I am thrilled.
You're thrilled?
Yes. I feel like, how can this not at least be interesting? Right. You know, it will not look like anything else. How about that? Even if it's a total disaster, which, who knows?
I imagine a lot of close-ups with handheld wide-angle lenses.
A lot of like singing right to camera, which we all know is the best way to film a musical.
A lot of live singing like he did with Les Mis. I'm just curious how they're gonna do Cats as like...
What's the story?
Like, are they gonna wear, like, are they gonna be cats like Taylor Swift? Or is it gonna be something a little...
Oh my God, do they turn into cats like halfway through? Like the night the moon comes up and instead of wolves, they're cats?
I don't think you can do Cats without being like the makeup and the bodysuit. Like you've got to commit.
So it's gonna be interesting, either like horrible or really stellar. I feel
also,
like it's gotta be either or.
There is no story to Cats. Like I saw Cats very recently for the first time and I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing one of the coolest things I'd ever seen, mostly because there was no story and it didn't make there's no bones about it. It was just like, hey, this is just people in cat suits dancing and like a little
cats.
Yeah.
Based on T.S. Eliot.
Yeah, that's it, kind of.
And
Sort
Jennifer
of.
Hudson's gonna sing Memory, I think. So like,
She has to.
oh my God,
That's going to be amazing.
it's gonna be like a Dreamgirls moment.
Who's gonna be Mr. Mistopheles?
I don't know.
That's my favorite character. It can't be Ian
That's a good
McKellen.
question.
Maybe James Corden.
Oh, give me a.
How much
break.
dancing are
Come
these
on.
people going to do also?
Yeah, Taylor Swift, like we know, like I love Taylor, but she's not like the best dancer, so it should be interesting to see her in like a cat. But she loves cats. We all know that. So of course she's gonna sign on to be in
Why she
Cats.
I love cats. I'll do this movie.
Do you not follow her on Instagram with her 2 cats?
I don't.
Oh,
She's even like carried the cat outside before, like a kind of accessory on her arm.
cat's name's Meredith Grey. What's the other cat's name?
Oh,
Olivia Benson.
yes, from
after her favorite shows.
Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy and Olivia Benson is that
Law
from
and Order.
Law and
Yeah,
Order. Oh, Law and
SVU.
Order. Okay. Okay. Well, let's move on to our first movie that we're talking about. It's been 10 years since the star-studded cast led by Meryl Streep sang ABBA in front of Pretty Landscapes. Guess what? They're back, and they've added Cher to their Pretty Landscapes. So yes, Queen, but for the older demo. Let's look at the trailer.
My soulmate may actually be carbs. Then mine must be wine.
All 3 of us are grandfathers, and that's that. Look what you've done with the place.
She wanted to make her mum proud.
If she hasn't done that all her life.
We can't tell anybody about the baby yet.
I just told Bill.
Yeah, and I told Harry. I told many, many people.
So I have not seen Mamma Mia 1 or Mamma Mia 2.
You haven't seen Mamma Mia?
So I can't give
Where
an
have you
opinion
been
on
for
this.
10 years?
Not watching Mamma Mia. But I've heard that the first Mamma Mia isn't that great, and I've heard that this one is great. Is that true? You've seen both.
I mean, yeah. The thing about the first Mamma Mia is I ended up leaving the theater like 30 minutes into the movie because me and my mom were hysterical laughing, where people in the theater were actually turning to us and giving us death stares, like, what are you doing in this movie if you can't appreciate ABBA? So
First movie you were?
That was the first movie.
What was so funny about it? It was so bad you were laughing?
It's not great. Okay. I mean, Pierce Brosnan can't sing. Meryl Streep's like bouncing around in her overalls. But then when I went home and watched it when it came out on DVD, I like loved it because I could sing and I got the fun of it. So the second one has like the same sort of spirit where like if you go in knowing what Mamma Mia is, you're gonna have like the best time.
Are you a fan of the first Mamma Mia?
I think it's fine. I feel like I watch it on a plane, which is like a pretty good way to watch it when you're like
That's what this movie is made for.
Yeah, you're very kind of like vulnerable to it, I think. On a plane, it's a whole different experience. But I haven't seen the second one yet. I have, however, already had like 3 people describe to me the Fernando moment, and that said that the theater like applauded.
I mean, as soon as Cher walks out, which is towards the end of the movie, she's really only in the movie for the last like 15 minutes. The audience like lost their minds, and then she kind of woos Andy Garcia, who is kind of having this moment of like, you know, he's the new leading man once again, where he used to be a romantic lead all the time, and now he's kind of back with it with Book Club and Mamma Mia too.
How does that happen?
I support it.
I mean,
I
I
do
support
too.
it. Andy Garcia, woo! But the ladies love Andy Garcia. They were all hooting and hollering, and they love Cher. How can you not?
Of course.
Now, my question with this one is the addition of Lily James to the cast, right? Because 10 years ago, Amanda Seyfried was this sort of like set to blow up big star, and in the past 10 years, I wouldn't say that she hasn't blown up, but she's not. I don't think she's as big of a star as it was expected. Although she makes really great movies, and she does actually really dangerous movies for I think a woman in Hollywood. But does the addition of Lily James feel like they're looking for the next Amanda Seyfried and not giving Amanda Seyfried her due as the character?
Maybe. I mean, Lily James has had so many, like, you know, she was on Downton Abbey, she was Cinderella, she was in Baby Driver. Like, I feel like Lily James has already kind of established herself.
Yeah, she's having her moment already, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, she hasn't quite taken off, I think, as people expected her to, but she's really good in this movie. She could really sing, and she plays Meryl Streep's character as like a younger version in flashbacks. So it's an interesting, like, you finally get to see how Meryl's character had fallen in love with all 3 men. Because do you know the story of Mamma Mia?
I don't know anything about it.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So basically there's 3, Colin Firth, Pierce Brosnan, and Stellan Skarsgård are 3 men that Meryl Streep's character had some romantic nights with, and then she finds out she's pregnant and she doesn't know who the father is. So Amanda Seyfried's character is trying to, through the first movie, find out which one is her dad.
Did you see my eyes glass over as you were explaining that to me? I'm so sorry.
You know, this weekend you should watch Mamma Mia and report back, please.
I'm not opposed to it. The original came out, 10 years ago, right? 2008, so I was 24. At 34, I'm a different man, I think, than I was at 24.
You're more open to the joy of Mamma Mia.
Have some wine,
house bro.
sit down, forget about all this. I mean, that's what I always say, is this kind of movie can take you away from what you're reading in the headlines. So maybe just escape for an hour or 2.
In Russian, though?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm sure it is, you know?
I can get a
on Netflix,
version.
subtitles.
Next up, we have a movie that proves the internet is somehow scarier than Donald Trump's Twitter feed alone. But in this kind of sequel, this is a kind of sequel to the original Unfriended. In it, the web turns dark, deadly, and also pretty clever. Check out the trailer.
What's happening?
Wait, guys, hold up. Where's Lex?
Wait, that's Lex's building. No, you guys.
No. Is that Lex?
He killed Lex!
Who?
The ones who buy the videos, the ones who pick the girls.
What the hell? They've all been watching.
This one is not supernatural. The first Unfriended, as you may know, had like a ghost on Facebook, which is, what better premise is there for a horror movie? But it also takes place entirely on the computer desktop. And I really feel like the cleverness of this is just like how natural it seems to be like, I can look at someone's like MacBook and it makes sense. Like every bit that they incorporate in the movie makes total sense. Everyone's on FaceTime, there's music playing, you see people sign into Facebook, and I kind of love that. I think it's really clever.
I agree. I actually have not seen the first one, but I did get the chance to see this one. I had a weird moment where I was watching this one, where I was watching a screener on my computer, and like pop-ups started happening on my computer because like something had to restart because it was getting it installed or something like that, and my girlfriend was like, "No, that's real. You have to X out of that." I couldn't tell. I thought it was because like there's just pop-ups happening in the movie all the time on an Apple computer screen. But I was really surprised with this movie with just how clever it is. I did not see it going where it went in some ways. Obviously, it's a horror movie, so you can see where it goes in other ways very easily. But they're really fun and they're really tight, and it's not much more you can ask for a movie that is shot on a Mac. like from cameras.
It's like the new like Blair Witch Project, the way they're like experimenting with the style. And Betty Gabriel's in this, who was of course in Get Out. So they're kind of like bringing in that whole, you know, kind of this new renaissance of horror movies. We had Hereditary this summer and The Quiet Place. And now this one, I didn't get a chance to see this one, but I'm hearing good things about it.
It's also, there's Searching coming out in a few weeks, which is another movie that's like a thriller starring John Cho that's also entirely on a desktop. So I feel like there's this kind of like burgeoning subgenre of movies that are just like, can you manage to tell a whole story entirely with like computer use or maybe phone use coming up?
I'm going to call it right now. That subgenre is not going to last. Because as much as I liked Unfriended Dark Web, I was also informed that I have to watch Searching for next week. And my immediate thought was, I think I can do one of these a year, even if I like them, because I would like to watch a movie happen.
Sure.
You know? But as I said, though, going back to the Blair Witch Project, when we talk about these sort of low-budget movies that are like, see if you can make it for as little as possible, those have gotten better because I think more time is now spent in the script stage and in the post stage, whereas Blair Witch, when you go back and watch it, feels like a lot of meandering to get to one final scene, which sometimes still works. With this feels like a very fleshed out, beaten script, you know, like everything is on point until you get to the end where there are just twists happening nonstop. And that part is really impressive, that they're able to have so many twists in a very limited capacity.
Yeah, I feel like these movies are bringing back the teen slasher, and I've really enjoyed it. You know, the fun movie, the horror movie where you like scream and like clutch your friend, and it's maybe not the thing that gives you nightmares afterwards, but it's a thing that's really fun to watch.
I would argue
this is going to be like a series. Unfriended?
I don't know. I could
Like
see
a
it.
Paranormal
This is a
Activity?
Blumhouse movie, I think.
Yeah,
right?
this wasn't supposed to be an Unfriended movie, apparently. It was called Exploit, and they were shooting it, I think they shot it like 2 years ago, and the guy who directed it's been in post on it for like 2 years. And eventually they changed it to an Unfriended sequel because it just kind of fit into that world. But it was initially supposed to be its own kind of standalone
I think
movie.
they're all produced by Timur Bekmambetov, who is a Russian-Kazakh director who did Wanted here in the U.S., so he's really like taken ownership of this particular idea.
Our next film is a documentary. It focuses on what this generation has been obsessed with for quite some time. And no, it's not avocado toast, it's wealth. It's Generation Wealth. Filmmaker Lauren Greenfield explores why society is so fixated on the status of being rich. And I can answer that because currently it feels increasingly like the only way to survive in America is to be wealthy. Let's take a look at the trailer.
I want to figure out why our obsession with wealth has grown. It seemed to be a shift in the American dream.
I know the names of the Kardashians better than I know the names of my neighbors.
This fictitious lifestyle fuels this sense of inadequacy.
I have the classic Birkin in almost every color.
The bags start 20,000, go up.
I realized wealth was much more than money. It was whatever gave us value. Fame, sex, even plastic surgery for dogs.
With a picture of Brett Ratner in the trailer with money on his head, I think you know where this movie's coming from. This is by the director who did Versailles, right?
The Queen of Versailles, which was about, I think they were building at the time the biggest private home in the U.S., this like amazingly awful McMansion in Florida, and it was just about the kind of this portrait of like rich people and misery, really. So you can see this has kind of been a theme in the director's life and her career.
Yeah, she's been working on this for like 25 years or something. Wow. That's how long it's taken her to kind of compile the people she found. And, you know, it's from like beauty pageant queens to like Kim Kardashian. But yeah, I did a reporter at HuffPost covered this movie and said that the handling of women isn't so great in it. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to talk particulars about that. But I think, you know, going back to that Kim Kardashian kind of storyline angle of wealth and just the way, you know, women have kind of looked to her as the sort of idol in a way, I think they touch on that. But maybe not in the best.
There's a lot of baggage when we talk about women in wealth in this country because so much of the way that we've talked about women for so long has been controlled by a male narrative or a narrative created by men. So often when Kim Kardashian is being talked about, it's like women who like to shop. Of course, this is what this woman does and what women do. And women are obsessed with wealth because they're obsessed with material items, and it leaves out a lot of the layers that are actually there when it comes to men and wealth and women and wealth and how we talk about about it.
So yeah, I'm curious to see if this was a Sundance movie, and people were talking about it there, and it's been, you know, a months-long kind of discussion. So I'm curious to see what people think about it. I'm sure people will be interested in this.
Yeah,
story.
I mean, we're certainly talking about income inequality a lot, and I feel like, you know, the movie kind of gets into this idea of the new American dream. Maybe it's like tilted so that it's not just like, can you have success for you and like the people you love, but now it's like, can you have all of the success? Can you really like aim to be one of the 1% or the 0.001%? And I mean, I think that's certainly on the minds of a lot of people these days.
Can you get a production company to want to make a reality show about you just because you're so rich and stupid?
And beautiful.
And beautiful, yes.
And don't forget beautiful.
Yes, and a businesswoman. How about that? Yeah.
Can I ask you, when you heard about this movie, since this is coming from 3 people who haven't seen this movie, when you heard about this movie, did you groan at all? Because when I first heard about this, a documentary called Generation Wealth about America's obsession with wealth, I was like, yeah. Like, I know, we've been having this conversation since the gates of wealth were opened in the 80s and our obsession with material items and being wealthy. I don't know what could be added to that.
I think it's difficult because whenever you're making kind of like a grand sweeping, trying observations about like how we've changed and all of that, I think it's really difficult. It's really difficult to kind of make big arguments about that because, as you said, we've always been obsessed with wealth. How has that changed? So I'm still curious to see it because I really liked Queen of Versailles. But I do feel like when you set out to make like a kind of big essay documentary like this, it's really tricky. The difficulty level is a lot higher.
Right. The difference with Queen of Versailles is that it's taking one story and making it, just by the nature of that story, about so many larger things, like it is about generation wealth in its own way. Whereas when you do something like this, you're starting from such a broad place, it's hard to pinpoint anything relatable or feel like that you can get involved in. Let's move on to our next film. It's a former Hamilton star, Daveed Diggs, teamed up with his best friend, Rafael Casal. They wrote a new film called Blindspotting, in which they both star. The film takes place in Oakland and follows the turmoil that starts to unfold between 2 friends when they start to question their identities and everything they've known in the gentrifying neighborhood they once considered a home. And he raps. Trailer, please.
You are a convicted felon, Mr. Hoskins. You are now that until proven otherwise. How? Prove otherwise at all times.
John, enough. Stop!
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Are you with me now? Said, are you with me now? Ain't felt this good in a while.
You know, you don't have to act ghetto to hang out here.
Can you hear me now?
You need to get rid of Miles.
Miles, this is my best friend.
He's gonna put you back in jail, or he's gonna get you killed.
I have not seen this. Take it away.
Well, you know, this is one of a few movies that have come out recently that have been set in Oakland or partially in Oakland, have come from filmmakers who are from Oakland. And I think this in particular really grapples with some kind of Oakland-centric issues of gentrification, of race, of police violence, of tech in the Bay Area. And it really gets at some themes that I think are really timely, but also very delicately done, at least for a while. I think that this goes for a big finish, but it's a really rich portrait of especially 2 friends, and 2 friends who grew up in the same neighborhood, but have very different experiences, in part just because of their race.
When it comes to the big finish, does the gun from the first act come out in the last act?
It does, and also there is maybe
rap battle?
A prolonged rap monologue.
You know,
like Hamilton.
There is an element of this, I think one of the reasons that I've been not turned off by it, but not like less interested than I think I would be for Daveed Diggs thing, is there something that immediately reminds me of like 90s independent film and like these sort of urban stories from 90s independent film, which always felt like they wanted to be about something, but then so easily fell prey to narrative cliche. And that's just sort of the feeling that I get from this trailer. But I haven't seen it, so don't take my word for it. But I'm asking you if that's the case.
I feel like people had that feeling going into Sundance too, and it was the opening film of Sundance. And I remember I didn't go to see it that night because I thought kind of the same thing. I was like, oh, I love Daveed Diggs, and it's interesting that he wrote this, and it sounds like a good story, but I could probably wait to catch another screener. And then that night, people were raving about it, and just how original it was, and how it talked about these topics in an interesting way. But it is funny that this movie's coming out really close to Sorry to Bother You, which I think is set in Oakland as well. And touches on similar things. So
and is also like as far from any kind of cliche as you can find in a movie
very
right
original
now.
and different, which this movie is too. Like you said, the ending, it doesn't land.
It's a big swing that it didn't, at least for me, work. But I do think that like it gets at it's more complicated than it at first appears, and especially with regard to gentrification. Like it shows the damage that gentrification can do, and resentment from people who are watching the area they grew up in change and kind of be taken away from them. But at the same time, Daveed Diggs' character's mom, who is like a house kind of like filled with kind of like her activist past, is also like, I'm not going to leave this neighborhood now that it's finally gotten like good food. So there's a kind of, it doesn't allow itself to be like too strident in issues like that. It allows there to be a lot of gray areas in between.
Cool. So our next film is Equalizer 2, and it's Denzel Washington and Anton Fuqua's first sequel ever, apparently. Wow. It's the first time they ever did a sequel. I'm not sure why it's this one. Check out the trailer.
It's a mistake to go to war with him. They're highly trained.
They're going to war with me.
Look at you.
Your father, your mama just didn't tell you.
I punish the guilty. If you're lucky, they'll give you the opportunity to do the right thing. This ain't one of those times.
I was personally not the biggest fan of the first Equalizer. I think I just wasn't in the mood because I like John Wick movies, and I like. You called violent dad movies?
Definitely a violent dad movie. He may not be a literal dad, but he is very coded. Denzel Washington is very coded as dad in these movies.
But the first Equalizer, for some reason, was too violent for me in ways. And this is coming from someone who likes John Wick, but I remember in the last act where he's pulling all the tools down, just being like, come on, like just go through these guys. I don't need to see you drill into their faces. This is like, that doesn't make you a hero. That makes you kind of sick. Like, at least when, going back to John Wick, he is using the weapons that are at his disposal that he has to use, where it felt like Denzel's character in the first Equalizer was using the things that could cause the biggest mess, which I was like, that's what a psychopath does.
But it's also got like this weird Home Alone but ultra-violent quality. Like the end of the first Equalizer is taking place in what they don't say is a Home Depot, because Home Depot did not give permission, right? Whereas in this new movie, Lyft did give permission, and he's a Lyft driver. But he uses all of the things inside the Home Depot to very imaginatively, horribly maim and kill people.
He is a Lyft driver in this, and I will tell you, there is not one passenger in his car that is having a normal day. Every passenger that gets in his car is like, just got into college, getting shipped off to the Marines, just got sexually assaulted, doesn't have the money. Like, there is just not one moment where one guy... One man is a Holocaust survivor who's looking for his sister that may have lived through the Holocaust.
Does he help all these people? Because he's the Equalizer.
What's going on in this movie? Sorry, and this is just in the first 15 minutes of the movie, where it's just like boom, 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 and you just want one person to get in and maybe like 4th and Broadway. Thanks.
Yeah, where's the drunk person? The drunk person who's like, oh, sorry, you know, like,
pizza in the back of your car.
The drunk person gets in, but the drunk person is about to go get drunk, but is like, but is struggling and has been sober for a few days and is like playing with their sobriety ring, you know? And like Denzel Washington looks back. I'm not sure if he says anything like, hey, keep up the good work, buddy. But like, it isn't just a drunk person. It's someone who like needs a look. Needs like a stern look from dad to tell him to keep on the right track.
Is that what turns Denzel into going back to his old ways as the Equalizer? Is just his boring humdrum Lyft life? Like,
no.
Or is he rescuing his Lyft?
He's rescuing all of them. He rescues all of them. One of the action sequences that we see in the trailer, I mean, we literally see all of the action sequences in the trailer. It gives most of the movie away. One of the action sequences is a woman gets into his car. She's clearly been assaulted, and she was thrown in by like some bro, and Denzel brings her to the hospital and then goes back to the bro's loft and beats the ever-living hell out of all these guys, rightfully so, but also like maybe call the cops, or maybe like beat them a little bit, but then call the cops. Yeah. Don't like beat them to within an inch of their life and seem to get excited by it. That's sort of weird.
He's equalizing.
I guess so, but he's like really nasty. And then he's like, take your broken fingers and give me a 5-star rating.
What?
Yeah.
The ratings are very important.
Denzel.
So in that regards, it's fun. But in terms of telling its story, it takes forever to get to the actual story that it's trying to tell. It's surprising how long it takes to get there, because you are just watching a series of Lyft rides that don't seem to have any place in this movie until the actual story picks up, which is really strange. And then once the story picks up, the bad guys, I would say, unlike the first one, are just kind of fairly basic, and you can see them coming a mile away once they're introduced.
Do you think Antoine signed on to do this because of the success of the first one? Like, it really did really well at the box office. Why would he
do that well?
It really
did.
It surprised people. But I don't know. I usually like Antoine Fuqua's movies, but I don't get why he would make this a sequel. Just like stick with the first one, and I'm just done with the sequels. We have a few of them on this list this week.
Three, like the three big movies this weekend are all sequels. I feel like they're unavoidable now. No one gets away without doing a sequel.
And I feel like they're all sequels that garnered the same reaction upon announcement, which was, really? You're doing a sequel to Mamma Mia? You're doing a sequel to The Equalizer? Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you love Denzel, I love Denzel, and you love The Equalizer, you may like this movie. I love Denzel. I didn't love The Equalizer, so I didn't love The Equalizer too.
That's a good way to put it,
Pretty good review,
Ricky.
right, guys? Right? I should do this professionally. Next up, and we're going to have fun talking about this one. Today is the Netflix release of yet another Happy Madison film. This is called Father of the Year, and it stars David Spade. Yay! In this comedy, David Spade stars as an embarrassing father who takes a playful joke about fighting his son's friend's dad way too seriously. It's basically Joe Dirt 20 years later, or however long it's been. I don't know when that movie came out. But don't take my word for it. Check out the trailer.
I fucked up his life pretty bad. I gotta make it right. I just got us a meeting at ISG. We're getting your job back.
What are you doing?
I'm gonna make this right for you.
What? No.
This is our VR meeting space.
Oh, fuck! I'm a kangaroo!
Dad, it's not real.
Everybody down! We got a pelican!
That looks awesome. Those guys are so funny. Actually, I really like Nat Faxon. Happy Madison on Netflix. I mean, I guess it could be Happy Madison before Netflix too. I will say I actually liked Robert Smigel's entry as a director the week of. I thought that was a genuine surprise of a nice movie from Happy Madison. Mostly I find these movies really mean and cynical, but that one was shockingly sweet, even in the Adam Sandler world. Either you going to check out David Spade's Father of the Year?
Oh, with a trailer like that, no. I mean, I think that what I find most interesting about this deal is just beyond the fact that Adam Sandler has gotten paid, I think, a ridiculous amount of money for this, is that Netflix has said they are some of the most watched original movies that they put out. You know, Netflix is always so cagey about what ratings are and like how many things have been streamed, but they have said everyone in the secret, spaces of their home when no one can see them watches these Adam Sandler movies.
Full confession. If they are counting people who just press play and watch 5 minutes to see how terrible something could be, I have watched all of the Happy Madison movies on Netflix. Because I do, even the one that he did with Spade and Sandler did together, I don't remember what it was called, but like Sandler's like a secret agent and Spade's like a normal guy and they go on adventures together or something. I watched a good half of that movie because I was just curious.
Half of it? You almost made it through the whole thing.
That's pretty good for a Happy Madison Netflix. That's almost pretty
I'm
good
not
for
a Happy
any
Madison person, but especially not on Netflix. But when that news came out that Adam Sandler movies are like crushing it on Netflix, I was like, really?
Oh, I believe it. I absolutely believe it.
I guess so. I guess I do have some guy friends who would like love this movie. I just feel like Father of the Year, like the title alone, I'm like, I feel like I've seen this movie. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, I do feel like when you watch the trailers for some of these, you're like, they've put a really exceptionally small amount of effort.
Oh my God. Even just that joke where it's like they do VR, he bumps his head. Yeah. Like that's the punchline to this guy doing virtual reality is that he just runs it's like every Adam Sandler movie joke. Set up, they run into a wall. Like that's all that it is.
He does look like Joe Dirt. It's like he's playing Joe Dirt as a dad. That's pretty much this movie.
You think that was the pitch? He walked into Happy Madison and it was like, just find something to put Joe Dirt in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I need something to do.
I mean, I feel like that's part of it too, is like Adam Sandler has, kept all of his friends working, and that's always been part of his motivation. I feel like he's talked as much about that. So congratulations to Adam Sandler for, being a good guy, I guess, to his friends.
He's apparently like the greatest guy in regards to all of his friends. Like when you talk to people who work with him, they're just like, I just want to make Adam happy. He's really good to me. And it's like, that's a really cool thing. I wish the movies were really good to us.
Sure. Yeah, it's fair.
But I will say I do recommend The Week Of. I actually recommend it. I thought it was a really funny, sweet movie, one of the better Happy Madison movies of all of them, not just on Netflix. This week, the 4th and final season of Unreal surprisingly premiered on Hulu. It's a Peabody Award-winning show for its first season. It's inspired by The Bachelor. It stars Shiri Appleby and Constance Zimmer. And I have to say, there seems to be a reason this was dropped on Hulu. Let's take a quick look at the trailer.
Welcome to the Wild Wild West version of Everlasting. Our very first Everlasting All-Stars, where couples will pair up each week.
I choose Rodrigo. So unfair. You're a basic and a You hypocritical son of
And cut! I'm glad we're back. Me too.
So go ahead, take it away. We were talking about this downstairs. You have a serious opinion about this.
Well, I do. I feel like the first season of Unreal was one of the best first seasons of TV I have ever seen. I thought it was just so smart and so sharp, like razor sharp, and it really looks like a really kind of happy, cheery show about the behind the scenes of a reality competition, but it's just brutal, really. And then Marty Noxon, who was the co-showrunner, left. She's got multiple shows on TV now, including Sharp Objects. And I think
Sharp Objects, Dietland.
I think Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce is just ending. So
Oh wow, I didn't realize
She
that
did
was
that
first.
movie with Lily Collins.
Yeah, To the Bone. Yeah, so she's been really having a moment. But in the meantime, Unreal, I think, really took a slide in quality. What's interesting to me about Unreal Season 4 is that it is kind of an example of something that's been happening a lot recently with streaming, which is that, like with Cloverfield Paradox, a streaming company bought a property off of traditional TV or a movie studio and then just dropped it, did a surprise drop, and kind of put a lot of PR behind that. And it feels like the new... I don't know. It's this new way of being look what we did for you, but also this was not good enough to be put on TV.
Not even on it was on Lifetime, people. Lifetime couldn't even air it season 4.
Isn't it also a way to avoid reviews during the season? I mean, if Cloverfield Paradox had not been just randomly dropped on Netflix and was announced that it was going to be coming in a month, people would have requested screeners and wanted to know why they weren't getting them, and there would have been write-ups about that in the press, which would have actually affected a Cloverfield world movie, because press and people who read the press are the kind of people who actually like Cloverfield. And the same thing goes for Unreal. If Unreal had been started airing episode after episode at a time and press were getting reviews, they would have nailed it. I mean, this season in particular, the show has had a sliding quality season per season after the first one. This season in particular is nonsense.
It's crazy. I couldn't even get through the first episode, and I love the first season of Unreal. And I'm a Bachelor fan, so I think those are the people too who were really into it in the beginning, because you see these inner workings that you always hear about, but the show was actually putting them out there. And then this first episode was just the hump and dump or whatever it is. They were playing weird games, and then Shiri Appleby's characters turning on Constance Zimmer. It was just
it's not totally outrageous, which I mean, I guess if you're going to go for a final season, you might as well go big or go home, but it does feel like it's pretty far removed from all of the things that I loved in the first season.
I also found it sort of ragged and poorly made. It felt like it was a lower budget than it had had in previous seasons. It felt like it was kind of chopped together. There were storylines that I felt were missing beats that even basic television wouldn't have missing in their storylines, and I was sort of utterly confused. As much as it's been gone down in quality per season, I loved the first season like you, and I liked the second season. I thought it was okay. I thought that they were taking big risks in it, which was kind of fun. Third season, okay. And then this season, I was just shocked by how poorly put together storylines were per episode. I was yeah, it makes sense that you dropped this. It feels like someone stopped caring about this.
I mean, maybe halfway through they already knew. I mean, we don't know what happened with that. But I do feel like it's a reminder that scripted TV, and especially scripted, ambitious scripted TV, is really hard. And all of these new channels and outlets keep popping up to try and make kind of high-end TV.
Crackle.
Crackle. Apple coming out soon, right? Walmart is apparently launching its own streaming service. I don't know if it'll have originals, but it's
Great.
hard. It's hard
TV
to
on
make TV. TV is not easy.
I'm looking forward to the Happy Madison offshoot that's on the Walmart channel.
Why can't we just just have to, like, when they say it's a limited series, just make it a freaking limited series. Like, Unreal would have been great as just a one series, like, great performances. I think they got some nominations for some stuff.
I know.
Just stop there. Like, stop.
I'm concerned about Big Little Lies season 2. I love that first season, but I'm also like
not. Andrea Arnold.
Sure, but who knows? I mean, this is like they're going off the book, and you know, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, one season would be fine. Exactly. It would be plenty.
Yeah, I find most television to be difficult to like. We talk about peak TV and that we're in the golden age of TV, but I think we're in an age of a lot of TV, and actually very little of it is good enough to warrant our eyeballs a lot of the time. Even the stuff that gets great reviews, I'm kind of like, oh, you just wanted something a little bit better than the rest of it, but like this isn't really that great most of the time when it comes to television.
Sure. There's a lot of noise out there too. And I feel like something you really feel in the age of peak TV is that we're not all watching the same thing anymore. And I do kind of miss that, to be like, did you see that episode last night? Like, does anything have that urgency anymore?
No, because even like the Emmy nominations, there were shows that my colleagues were like, what the heck was Godless? And I was like, you didn't watch Godless? It was great. And then they're like, but Howard's End wasn't nominated. It's like but it's like, what's Howard's End? When did that come out? So there's too much content. And yeah, I miss that camaraderie of like when we used to all watch Grey's Anatomy on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. and like talk about it. There's not that anymore. Everybody's watching too many different things.
The last thing that I found that camaraderie with was Twin Peaks, but that was still a very niche group of comrades, you know?
I feel like
comrades. Putin, hello.
We have Game of Thrones, right, everybody? We have Game
and I
of
feel like
Thrones.
Westworld had a little bit of that, though I feel like maybe everyone was wanting it to happen more than it actually did.
And this season was very hard to follow. Some people dropped off.
A couple more TV shows that are coming out. FX's Snowfall, which was created by John Singleton and tells the story of the crack epidemic in LA, as well as the Meghan Markle-less season of Suits. Guys,
Katherine Heigl is joining, though.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's taking Meghan Markle's spot.
Katherine Heigl.
Heigl's back on TV. I mentioned Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, and you know, maybe she deserves this. Maybe it's time.
Yeah, well, she's had like a
so
few.
Mean to say, she deserves the 6th season of Suits.
Suits is a show on USA which has been quietly very successful.
It's very successful.
Every show on USA.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like USA sometimes is kind of ignored in the era of like
people love Suits.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Suits is a hit,
and it's always had shows on for like 10 seasons.
They just had The Sinner too, which I just started watching because Jessica Biel got an Emmy nomination. I was like, I should probably watch
Antonio
it.
Campos, I want to say, directed the first episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of The Sinner?
On USA.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I feel like, you know, there's something to be said for USA. As much as you can make a joke about a lot of their series looking very interchangeable, they sell a kind of comforting, you know, like lawyer shows or doctor shows.
Like I'm talking to a big Burn Notice fan right now.
I would say I've watched maybe half of Burn Notice.
The show with Mark Paul Gosselaar, or what's his?
Oh, that was actually
Gosselaar?
that.
What's his last name?
Gosler.
Franklin and Bash.
Franklin and Bash.
That was not USA. That was like TNT.
That was part
Same
of TNT's
thing.
heyday,
Same thing.
where they had Franklin and Bash and The Closer, and like they had a bunch of shows at right around the same time.
TNT and USA to me are the same thing.
Yeah, to a lot of people, I think they are.
As is Zach Morris and Mark Paul.
I think on one of them you get the Shawshank Redemption more often than the other, and that would be.
Oh, TNT does Lord of the Rings. I mean, you gotta stick with that one.
Yeah, you can spend a whole day watching Lord of the Rings with commercials.
Back to Suits.
Does USA even play movies anymore? I feel like
I
they
don't
used,
know.
when I was a kid growing up, they used to have like late night slasher movie marathons, which were like my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. I'm
Anyway,
not sure.
tangential.
but I do feel like, you know, we don't talk about USA ever in this era, and I do feel like they deserve a shout out because they do have a very loyal viewership that like they've kept around when a lot of other places really go up and down.
This is so tangential, but I was in a bar not that long ago talking to someone, and I don't remember if they brought up Suits or White Collar, but they were like, oh, you gotta watch it. That show's great. And I was like, you're kidding. And like, well, have you seen it? I was like, no. And they're like, well, who are you to judge? And I was like, you're absolutely right, but I can't believe I'm finally being recommended a USA show. Suits.
Good. I haven't watched Suits in years, but it might struggle without because I think Meghan Markle left and is it Patrick Adams?
Yeah,
he left
Adams
too.
left as
So
well.
the two leads. But again, Katherine Heigl. Everybody loves a good Heigl.
You know,
session.
I feel like she'd be a good like legal drama person. Also, she seems like she'd
had
fit
a
in.
few shows that have like not
tried.
taken off over the years.
She's
She
tried.
kind of shot herself in the foot with the Grey's Anatomy stuff, but
So top picks. Your top picks? 2 picks?
Oh, I'll say Blindspotting and Unreal Season 1.
Okay. Oh, good.
I will say Mamma Mia too, of course. You guys haven't even seen it. You guys
I will
gotta
see it. I will see it.
And what else? Suits. Let's do it.
Suits. I'll go Unfriended Dark Web. And I'll also say Unreal Season 1 again because it's really great and it's on Hulu and you can watch it. Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah. I didn't think that we could do that because that's not being. But yeah, let's do.
And 8th grade. Let everybody just go see 8th grade.
Yeah.
That's from last week, but go see it again.
Yeah, honestly, there's a few movies that we didn't talk about today that are still in theaters that are the best movies that have come out this year that you should go see. It's like 8th grade, First Reformed, I think, is still playing. Sorry to Bother You is still playing. Hereditary is still playing.
Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yeah, and if The Rider is still out there, I love The Rider.
And The Rider, yeah. There's a, we talked about what's coming out this weekend, but there's also just the other movies that are the best of the year that are out there. And that is all the time that we have this week for Build Week and Watch. Before we go, don't forget to check out the season finale of Ryan Murphy's Pose, which is a great show. It's on Sunday on FX. The new documentary McQueen is out. It's on the late fashion designer Alexander McQueen. And all of the new trailers that were released at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. I want to thank Leigh and Alison. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Ricky Camilleri, and I hope my Russian was okay, Mr. Putin. Believe me, I'm a good host. I won't make any problems. So salute to you, and when the handover is complete, I'm happy to present your propaganda to the world.